So I'm going to call education to order. We only have one bill. We'll make it kind of quick. Sponsor is Hastings, Vercher, and others. And we have a letter to approve from Council Lady Vercher. Declares surplus, and it's bill number, BL 2019-1476. Declares surplus property and approves the disposition of parcel of real property known as 0 Brick Church Pike. Do I have a motion?
So move.
Second.
Second. Have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
We had a robust discussion last time. Go ahead.
First of all, I want to commend the community members that have communicated with us. We do often hear from folks that don't want stuff built in their community, and we understand that. I have a lot of constituents in my area, as well as I've heard from constituents in the District 2 area that really have done a lot of work that, for me, is persuasive about why this parcel has features that are different maybe than other parcels, number one. And number two, there are some questions about the legal history of this property as well that are unresolved as of yet. And also one of the things I want to comment on is I've been encouraging community members to reach out to Land Trust or to find a buyer, to find some way to get funding to M&PS, because we understand how urgent that's needed. So I appreciate the work that the community members have been doing so far. I want to continue to support that effort to keep finding another solution. I'm not prepared to support it today, so I would be voting no today. Perhaps between this and third, we can still reach a solution, but I do want to support the many community members who have done a lot of diligence on this parcel and vote no on this one today.
Okay.
And I think that's very well said, Councilman. I too have those same sentiments, but my issue too is when does the citizens matter? When is it that they have a voice? And I understand the concerns that we have with the schools and what they need and what they're trying to do. But we are given green space everywhere, and sometimes we've just got to make a determination that enough is enough, and we've got to find another way in order to support the schools in the ways that it needs to be supported financially, because this sale of this land is not going to make that much of a difference. So based on the people that we have, and we've got so many things that's going on, that we're making decisions that our citizenry is concerned about. And we've got to make these decisions, and we've not given enough thought to it. We don't have enough information, but we're being asked to make those decisions. And I think that something like this, as small of a piece of land that it is, let it stay in the community. Let the community know that their voice has been heard and that we care. And we've got to get back to that. And it's not all about what is to come, but what we've done, because if we hadn't done what we do now, we wouldn't have anywhere where we'd be able to go. So let's take care of those people that have taken care of us and let them know that we care about them. And with this one, with this piece of property, because if we just giving it all away for everything and nothing matters, then we're gonna continue to get what we always got.
Any other comments?
Sure, yeah. I want to say I appreciate the work of the council members, the comments of both of you, Brett, especially all the work you've done trying to come up with a solution for this. There's one thing you did say that I want to vet a little bit further about legal history. I want to talk with you guys. Are there any concerns with respect to the legal history of this property that give you pause at all?
All properties in the name of the metropolitan government and then assigned to different departments. And the question came up about how and when was it assigned to schools. And we've been able to find the deed where the metropolitan government purchased it, but we have not been able to look at that history to see when it was assigned to schools and if it was assigned someplace else before that. But again, regardless of what department a piece of property is assigned to, it's all in the name of the metropolitan government.
So you're comfortable with this moving forward in its current state, that it is?
From the deed being in the name of the metropolitan government, it's just that piece of, the history of how the assignment happened we haven't been able to figure out.
Well, I have many of the same concerns that everybody's expressed. This is a tough one, and it's troubling to have to go down this path. I also understand that we're in a budget situation that requires measures that are a bit more drastic than we normally would. So, you know, when the scales are balanced, for me, it kind of tips on the side of doing what I can to support the school system. So for that reason, this is second reading. I'm definitely going to advance it here, but that's where I fall in the line of supporting this. Although I appreciate very much what you two had to say and the rationale behind your positions.
Councilman Orr.
How much is it anticipated the land will bring?
It is appraised at $720,000. That's what the appraisal came in at.
And this is to help fund the remainder of the school's budget, is that right?
For this year.
Right, for the current year. for
And-
19.
Are we fully funded if we don't have this property? Or if we do have this property, how much are we still lacking? Do you know?
So the budget passed by the council relies on $13 million from the sale of property. The property that has been surplus by the school board so that we don't need it, so that it can be sold, I guess for this purposes, that depends on, that's up to you. There were 4 of those. The total appraised value for those 4 was 5.4. So that's that if they all sell for the appraised value, that would still be 7.6 million short of that 13 million, but it would be 5.4 more than if none of them sell, right? So if that answers
Yes.
your question.
So I get Councilmember Hurt's comment that this may not mean a lot in the long run, but we have such a hole. I think we've got to look under every cushion, and unfortunately, very unfortunately, here we are. So I'll be supporting it today. I'll second reading for it to move forward.
Thank you, Councilman. So let me just ask one question, if I may. Maybe 2, but I think 1. If I remember correctly, I think you told me, Mr. McGuire, that 546,000 would be the minimum that could be bid upon it? Because
That's right.
it's got to be set at 80%.
A minimum bid's got to be 80% of the appraised value.
Okay. Do we have any nibbles on this right now? People who are saying, I want to buy it?
Not that I know of. I'm not involved in
Okay.
that. And we can't really, advertise much until.
But I didn't know if somebody was already taking a look. Okay, well then, so this is where I think question number 2 will fall into play. In the event it doesn't sell prior to the end of this fiscal year, then does it revert back or does it stay on the surplus as far as for sale?
Right. We don't need it,
No, okay.
right?
Well, I would assume that, yes.
As I don't foresee the school board. I guess that would be if the school board wants to withdraw their surplusing of it. I guess that can happen.
Okay.
That's a good question, though. It's a new council.
Well, that's why I'm
that's
asking, because
good
the
question.
minute we cross
Yeah.
the finish line for this term, I guess, have we bound the next council, or perhaps administration or whoever it is, have they been bound to sell this piece of property?
That's a good question.
I
Okay.
don't think it's an obligation to sell it. If.
But if the council surpluses it, then I believe, and I was hoping Mr. Jameson. Okay, well, I was hoping Mr. Jameson was going to be in here because I wanted to ask the question. But in the event, then if we don't have the authority to bind the next council to this, then I guess it would revert back to us automatically. And that's an assumption,
I mean,
but
I think there's a certain amount of, there had to be binding, otherwise, if we, decide
We're
to,
fine, but I discussed this with Mike, and we can, at the point at which this occurs, we can go back and file legislation to rescind it.
I would imagine until it's gone, we could pass legislation.
Okay.
That unbinds it,
All right.
unbinds Metro.
All right.
And unsurpluses it.
so then I'm going to, those against.
So let me ask
Oh,
you,
yes.
so just to be clear, it doesn't necessarily have to sell for 750,000. It may
720.
sell for 500 and,
46.
right, at the minimum amount, if it sells.
Correct.
So if it doesn't sell, then does that mean that what we've done here has been for naught?
If it doesn't
If
sell,
it doesn't sell, we just don't get any money. I mean, that's,
Well, you know, and the school board could
Well,
decide.
so, and if you don't get the 13 million, even if you sell all of the property and you get 5 and you don't get 7 more, does that mean that you sold all of that property for naught?
We sold the property and got the money that came in. Not the sale of one, there are 3 that have already been approved by the council. And and I think the bidding is closed on 2 of them. And this is the 4th one. And so when those properties close, the sale of those properties close, then the funds coming to the schools is not contingent on this one also selling. Each sale is individually,
Independent of one another.
right, is independent.
and I think.
To clarify her question though, even though you don't get all the money, it still is that much more money you have to apply to the school's budget.
Correct.
Well, and
Which
it
means they
doesn't-
won't be as short as they would if these properties didn't sell.
It doesn't
short
change
is
the fact
short.
that
I mean,
schools
it
doesn't
seems to
need-
me, I mean,
Right.
It doesn't
what they
change.
say, ask the person that lost that race, they short, they was,
Yeah.
somebody hit it before they did, short is short.
I mean, I think what the community is hoping to do ultimately, which I think is very reasonable, is to convey this over to Parks. What I had been hoping to do, and at least initially, was to see if we could transfer land acquisition funds from Parks so that Parks would basically buy
Right.
it from schools so that schools could still get compensation. And that I think would be an ideal scenario if we had funding in that budget.
Well, I have to make one comment because I chaired Budget and Finance for the school board. Chances are by the end of the year, they won't be $13 million shy of what their budget is. They do a pretty good job of watching the dotting the i's, crossing the t's, the p's and q's. And so, you know, I hope we don't get marked down on the 13 million. Not to say it's not real, it is a real number, but you know, as we've looked at what property tax collections are, sales tax collections, et cetera, I would be astonished if it was 13 million at the end of the day. So anyway, with that, any other questions? Okay, then those for, those against, and I'm going for. Okay, so it passes 3-2. I think that's our last one. Thank you. We are adjourned.
Well done.